Hey, Patrick, how you doing, bud?
Not too bad at all, buddy. So we're both back in our own respective domiciles. Is that what they say?
We have retreated to our corners, in fact. So today we have
Yes.
Sir Paul Marshalls has approximately 875 million in assets managed. Would look like maybe tens of billions in his hedge fund, but worth close to $1 billion himself. So he has,
So he has a few bob.
well, he has some words to say about what the woke virus has done to society and functionally where it comes from. And I think this perspective will give the listening audience a little bit to work with as far as why conceptually we have reached the place that we are. So we're going to start here.
As I said, it's nice to explore all these different ideas, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. All right, here we go to talk about power dynamics and what that looks like.
There are precious few examples, and I challenge you to name them, of philosophers, whether of meaning, morals, or politics, who have offered us anything positive. The word deconstruction is most commonly associated with Jacques Derrida, the man who took all the fun out of literature.
So when he's talking about philosophers of meaning and politics and all those things, life functionally until modernity was tragedy and misery. And any day you had that was not tragedy and misery was a pretty good day. When we got to the place where we could have luxury ideas and luxury beliefs, we end up with things like wokeness because things just aren't fair. So we're going to.
The funny thing is, I remember years ago, when Jordan Peterson first came on the scene about 10 plus years ago, he said something very, very similar. And it still rings true all these years later. We're gone so soft that we're letting our entire societies collapse.
Well, the previous generations have built the infrastructure within which we now live. And if those things go away, the ability to recreate them will be very, very difficult as we become softer and softer and softer. And we would rather see fairness than function. It should be a meritocracy. Yes. And a meritocracy, the thing that creates wealth and prosperity, not the taking of things from other people by saying, I'm just going to take it because I'm going to exert use of force on an infrastructure for those who are within the infrastructure.
Yes, and it never works out well for society when that starts happening. As I've always said, the pot can only go around for so much, for so long. Right, I'm thinking of Mondami at the moment in New York, what he's doing by taxing the super wealthy, which looks fantastic on paper, the people who voted for him, until these wealthy people up sticks and leave and take all those jobs with them.
Right, and the state of California is doing an exit tax pretty soon, and they're also attempting to do like an unrealized gain. Right. So what this is government exerting power to send the offering plate out and then forcing you while sitting at the end of the pew to put more and more money in there, and then assessing all the things you have at the house and saying, well, we're not going to let you protect your papers and your things and your belongings. We're going to assess everything. We're going to evaluate it and then steal from you because we're going to exert the levers of power because we have taken them.
So the capital gains tax is something we do have in Europe, to a very, very small extent, and not as bad as what they're proposing in California.
Right.
What they're proposing in California is very, very dangerous, especially for elderly retired individuals, because their properties will go. Property does increase in value over time if you have the right property. But the problem is these older folks won't have the money to make up the difference as their tax burden increases.
Well, in California, Prop 13 was supposed to protect that, and it has for the most part. The bad part is once they start assessing unrealized gains, this is mainly to hit those who have stocks and options, and as the stocks expand, then they'll attempt to extract any kind of liquidity they can. So then you'll have to prove you don't have the liquid assets. Well, then they'll go assess your things and say, well, you've got an amazing stamp collection, and look at these antique guns, and golly, that's a nice painting. Yeah. So
as you were saying, the slippery slope. Where does it stop?
Right. So, and we have capital gains taxes. I'm not arguing a capital gains tax as long as you reinvest it in real estate. But the problem is that when you have an unrealized gain, and you, like you were saying, senior citizens and those on fixed incomes who can no longer afford to pay an increased tax burden.
Yes. And it's always the people on the fringes of society always get hit the hardest when it comes to these ridiculous tax codes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then they say it's going to be the billionaires only. But if they lower the bar
No,
just
it's
a
not.
little bit to get a little more money, right? I remember in 1913, well, I don't remember, but I've seen. So in 1913, the United States affected the 16th Amendment for an income tax. By 1917, everyone was paying. And it started out as if you make over $3,000 a month. Now in 1913, 3,000 US dollars represented the top highest percentile of those who were earners in the country. And then eventually by 1945, the end of World War II, it was a 77% for as many people as they could possibly extract resources, right?
Yes.
But by 1917, 1918, everybody was getting involved.
Everybody's going to slap a little bit of tax along the way.
And then they did
same
another.
Same thing started happening over here actually after.
And then
mainly it kind of ramped up after our 2008 crash, but they brought in a thing called a universal social charge as a temporary measure, by the way, in 2009. We're what now? 26. Yeah. What is it?
Something, right?
17 years later, we still have it. Just double check. Sorry for pausing there. Just double checking my dates. Yeah, 2009 that social charge came in, and as a temporary 2-year measure, and it's still here.
One of our least favorite, one of our least favorite, not holidays but days, is April the 15th. It's tax day. That's when all the taxes.
Tax day.
Day, right? So
actually, that's funny enough. We actually start handing in our taxes roughly around April time as well.
In April, by the 15th, your personal income taxes need to be filed. What's funny is the government pretty much knows a rough amount of what you're supposed to be paying. And it used to be back early 1913s, 1920s, 30s. You would, in April, cut a check to the government or go to your local post office and make sure that Uncle Sugar got his sugar, right? But then they did something insidious in taking a portion of your paycheck, of your earned wages, that they take and hold against your tax bill on April the 15th. And the funny thing is if you have that money in your bank, you can earn interest on it. When your money over the year goes to the federal government, they have your money and they get the interest on it. And if they do pay you any kind of a return on it, you get no interest. So they can take 10, 12, 15, $20,000 of your money, earn interest on it. And if you get back $5 or $6 grand, say, you don't get any interest on it, right? So it's kind of a power play. And I know we've gotten pretty far afield, but it's a pretty interesting concept.
I think as I said, we better definitely get back on track, as they would say.
But he was not the most important deconstructor. For me, 2 others stand out. In the 19th century, Nietzsche said there was no absolute truth, only perspectives. Then, later, Michel Foucault said that in the absence of truth, everything should be interpreted through the lens of power. The world was divided into victims and oppressors.
That's a huge problem, because when you have only victims and oppressors, you have to do a binary. Is this group the victim or is this group, right? Like, which way does it go?
Peterson put it fantastically years ago. Roughly the same concept. Is how far down do the victim groups go? Do we go? I understand the main victim groups. Where does the line stop being a victim?
Well, and then you have the victim group Olympics, right? Everybody says, well, I'm a victim because of this and I'm a victim because of that.
Look, I've got 3 toes, I'm a victim. Those kind of things. It's ridiculous. I understand I'm being a bit flippant saying that. There's genuine oppression in the world. But if you're living in a Western world, a Western country, especially one of the G7s, you're not going to be that oppressed in any shape, form, or fashion for the most part.
Well,
you're not going to have guys beating you. You're not going to have guys beating you with billy clubs every 2 seconds.
Well, so's division as well, because as you break down the groups, then even the victim groups who are broken off from the smaller victim groups say, well, I'm a victim from this victim group. So then the interaction gets really strange. And then when you have government forcing DEI and other kinds of situations, which is I'm going to promote the victim groups that I perceive as victim groups, which aren't victim groups. They're just Americans. They're just Irishmen. They're just
Yes.
the English. Right?
Like I'm going to take your colleges for example. A lot of it is DEI in your colleges for the most part, isn't it? So if you come from a certain economic background, you're a certain skin color, you're nearly guaranteed, no matter how bad your marks are, a college place. Is that right? In the most part,
right. And at the
if
same time,
right.
So, and at the same time, our colleges have advanced maybe 8 to 10% students. Our administrative staff has advanced 88 to 90% across the board.
And the sad thing is, I'm not going to badmouth your colleges. There's some fantastic ones. I'm thinking of MIT and a few more, but the vast majority of other colleges are setting these kids up to fail.
Oh, especially the Ivy Leagues. The Ivy Leagues are doing horrible.
These ridiculous, nonsensical degrees that never will operate in the real world. It's just, don't get me started about the educational system.
It creates a problem. I was watching a video the other day. A nice lady had gotten about $50,000 in loans and things, and she had paid back about $26,000, except that her amount owed on the loan exceeded the initial amount. Right. So, right. So that makes that individual a perfect victim. That perfect victim will then have to vote for things that will get them out of debt. It's a mechanic used to keep people down. I
actually came across a fantastic video. I was actually watching on the plane on the way over. I don't know which count I was logged into, but it was about why people voted for Biden.
Was that the Aer Lingus flight with the screaming Smallies?
Oh no, this is the nice quiet one when I was flying over to your country. Oh, not the one coming back not the one that came back there a couple hours ago. Yeah, but the great thing is what I was saying about Biden. The vast majority of people who voted for Biden that time voted on him promising that he would cancel student loans. Remember that promise?
Yes, I remember that.
Which, by the way, they can't do because that's over. What is it, 5 trillion, something ridiculous? I know, I know it makes up I think it makes up what, nearly 50% of your national debt is student loan debt.
It's
something ridiculous like that.
It's hilarious, is what it is.
But he was that's why a lot of people actually voted for Biden that time. That was a number one policy that they all voted for, that promise.
Well, the problem with that is I've paid all of my college loans off. Do I get reimbursed for all of the loans that I paid back?
That's what this gentleman said as well. He said, I've paid 100,000 back. Do I get that money back? You know, that was a debate at the time, but obviously he never went ahead with that.
Well, he delayed it for some time.
Did he actually follow through in any shape, form, or fashion? I don't remember any headlines about him.
I don't think people were being pursued for not paying.
Right. But now, I think now they are, aren't they?
Aggressively.
Yes. Because, you owe the money. You have to pay back your loans.
What?
I know you mightn't like it, but, you have to pay it back. If you borrow the money and got the goods and services, you have to pay it back.
I think it's predatory to hit up people as soon as they achieve their majority to get them locked into these positions without explaining the long-term effects on their finances.
It's your colleges are like basically just shakedown artists. Is the only way to describe some of them.
It's like a really shitty casino where you can never win. We're going to give you a degree in underwater pillow fighting. You're going to make
it's not even a good casino. It's not even a good casino. It doesn't give you free drinks, free gifts. There's no, music going on in the background.
Oh, you can get free gifts in college. I know some guys that got the clap, right? Here we go.
Right, let's go for it.
I guess this is what happens when you let the French and Germans take over. Foucault is now the most cited source in all academic literature. The most cited source. He was an interesting guy, Monsieur Foucault, one of the biggest public supporters of the Ayatollah Khomeini, and a big advocate of legalizing sex with minors on purely libertarian grounds, I'm sure. In many ways, the West now lives in Foucault's world, the world of oppressors and victims, the world of my truth and your truth.
So that's a problem as well. That's a perspective issue. So if you tell me something I don't like, I can say, well, that's not my truth. But the problem is, in reality, there is what is actual, evidentiary, and in fact. And you
Yes.
cannot say, I'm going to counter your argument that has evidentiary value, your syllogistically formed premises and conclusions, because I just don't like it. It makes me
Yes.
uncomfortable.
It makes me feel sad on the inside. I've heard that as well. And the other sad thing is about a lot of these beliefs that a lot of people on both sides of the aisle
Well,
have a
they're
tendency to
luxury
dig in is.
beliefs. They're luxury
Yes.
beliefs, and they get their little feelings hurt.
And by the way, I'm not going to mean pick left or right because they're both as guilty as this. Even if evidence comes out to prove what they're saying on either side of the aisle is wrong, they'll still stick to those beliefs, no matter what. Which is another thing that is a very unfortunate thing that's happening with our Western society at the moment. Even if new evidence comes out to prove something is wrong, they'll still stick to their guns out of just sheer stubbornness or tribalism. I don't know. I'm not too sure, but one or the other in a lot of cases.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yes,
It's
that's there. That's what I was reaching for there.
Right.
Good
So
man.
it's a cognitive dissonance issue in that not only when someone shows evidence that you are incorrect, they double down on their position. And they get more into the vibes of their position. Like, so and so showed me a thing, but I know he's lying. It's the Jewish space lasers or some other just wild crap.
Wild stuff. Where was I? What Rumble? Yes, Rumble. I was trying to think there. But by the way, people in the audience, bear in mind now, I'm awake for 30 plus hours, so I will ramble a small bit. But I remember in Rumble, I was telling you about I have to send you on that video where they were saying that birds weren't real.
Like, wasn't that a function of birds are actually dinosaurs? So birds as a concept don't exist.
No. This guy had graphs. And he had pictures, and he had the whole lot that birds aren't real. They're literally a secret government project.
Birds are a secret government project.
Yes. I think he might be firing on all cylinders, but you know,
I guess
he's got his beliefs.
Right. Well, it's his truth. It's his truth.
Yes.
A world where Islamists and LGBTQ activists can happily coexist in the same political party, even though one tribe wants to throw the other off the roofs of buildings, simply because they share the same sense of victimhood. After World War II, the worst ideas from Europe were also smuggled across the Atlantic, where they were incubated and mutated in the American university to give us critical race theory, critical gender theory, intersectionality.
All these critical things are based on power structures.
Yes.
And the Frankfurt School through Foucault functionally captured our university systems in the early 90s. So we ended up with a lot of this DEI, and we ended up with a lot of excess admin and a lot of wasting of money and an inability to teach our children how to critically think. Not critical theory, because critical theory is going to function on who has the most power, and whoever has the most power is necessarily wrong, so we must topple that power, which leads to all kinds of misogyny and hate for the people who founded countries because they had some kind of negative thing that they did, which in their era was not a negative thing. It was just how the reality of the world was.
I think that's the sad thing about an awful lot of young people is they do not study history with a critical eye. A lot of countries have bad things all through history, but doesn't mean that country is still bad or those people are still bad. People evolve, cultures evolve over time. But I do agree with what they're trying to do in some of the colleges in some ways, because I know what they're trying to do, but they're going about it arse backwards. Is that I can say that on YouTube for more than 5
I'm
minutes.
pretty sure you can.
Yes.
I'm the one that generally uses words we're not supposed to use. So
yes.
I wouldn't worry about it. Well, most of it's an American audience anyway, and if you use the word like numpty or bollocks, they're not going to care. They don't give a damn.
That's true.
So
they're not sensitive. They're not sensitive flowers.
No. So when you run into these critical theory issues and gender issues, critical queer, critical black, critical everything, it all boils down to attempting to take power away from those who are perceived to have the power as the creators of the infrastructure. So since they built the thing, we're going to take the thing and we're going to do it because we're victims, right? The meek shall inherit the earth kind of a thing. But that's not really what that means. It means the strong protect the weak so the weak can have the world. You need to have a meritocracy. If you don't have a meritocracy, the infrastructure will fall.
Yes.
How many times have you tried to find someone to fix a thing in your home or at your business and you just can't find anybody? Because people just don't want to do those jobs. They'd rather sit in a comfortable office with air conditioning. But if you don't have a guy to fix the air conditioning, or a gal, there can be air conditioning gals, well, then you're going to be real hot in your office. And
I know the setting is, and it's absolutely a fantastic career for young people. I cannot understand why young people are walking away from a job that could potentially pay them at least $200,000 a year. Easily.
Well, you want people to sweat for their money? Come on now, Patrick. Sweat for your money.
Yeah.
Shaw.
And queer theory. There was also a side helping of post-colonial theory to make sure we deconstructed Western history and are properly ashamed of it. I love all these theories equally. I can't get through breakfast till I performed a land acknowledgement, checked my privilege, changed gender at least 3 times. This usually means I get to the office half an hour late, but I just explain that time is an oppressive white supremacist invention.
That is a super interesting series of functions.
Yes.
When you start doing land acknowledgements and start doing all these histrionics, when I say a thing is true and because it's my truth, it is true, and I'm going to force you into the same belief structure, that is unhealthy society-wide.
It's sad to see that young people don't understand. I keep going back to the fact that they do not understand history. Yes, bad things happened generations ago, and the world is, for the most part, moved forward. Just thinking of my own country in Ireland, we've had a bit of a history, as they would say, more than a bit. But we're not holding a massive chip on our shoulder. Well, for the most part, we're not.
Well, I don't think those 6 counties in Northern Ireland are thinking things are going great with it right now.
Oh, well, it's ride season up there again, isn't it? Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah, Belfast. It's
Yeah, time to break out the water cannons again. I know I'm being a bit flippant. So if you live in Ireland, you're kind of used to Belfast, kind of, having their little little moments. Is that the word I could use?
I think it's just another hot boy summer. I think it's just another hot boy summer, bud.
Yeah, we had a few years with the orange order parades, the whole 9 yards. We're just kind of, I wouldn't say we're used to Belfast having a tendency to kind of blow its top. Now, the difference this time is what that brutal attack on that gentleman.
Mr. Ogilvy,
Yes, that was an unbelievable savage attack. There's no way of dressing that one up. And I actually, going back to the point this gentleman made, is there still people in the press, I wouldn't say trying to justify it, but trying to minimize the perpetrator in some way, making him a special victim himself in some way.
Well, he needs to be on the special end of a 45 caliber bullet. That's where he needs to be. The very special end of that.
Yes.
All right, we're going to give him a few more minutes because he's cooked a lot in a very short space of time.
Absolutely.
The process of deconstruction did not finish there. Richard Dawkins said, and the New Atheist said there was no God, and blithely assumed that a godless society would come up with a nice humanist creed to provide meaning, mutual trust, and moral order. I understand he may now be having second thoughts. In the economic sphere, it was a bit harder to deconstruct because the evidence that property rights, free markets, and innovation are the best mechanism for creating prosperity is so overwhelming that it is difficult to build a counter-narrative, especially since 1990. But deconstructionists can be sly. So to deconstruct free market economics, they attacked from the flanks. They brought us net zero, an ideology of fear and destruction, giving a new excuse for state interference.
When you attempt to deconstruct, and this is what all these critical theories do, they attempt to deconstruct those things that are functional and true in society to make them so that they're overbearing, so that the victim group can persevere when they, through no meritocratic means, deserve to be in a position of power. Things like net zero and the Green New Deal, which is a lot of hand waving and fluttering and pearl clutching, is not an effective way to use our resources or allocate anything logistically in any way. It is just a funnel of money that they force from the taxpayer to go to wherever it is they want. They're functionally stealing from the taxpayer to give money to people. That's
it's actually worse than that. They steal money from the taxpayer and give very little results at the end of it. So we're spending millions on this, on green technology.
Billions? I don't think the M is the right. Billions to a trillion.
Billions.
Right. Across the G7, it's insane.
And it doesn't seem to be any net results. They turn around and they say break ground and building 50 new wind turbines, which is fantastic on paper. If the 50 of them get built, 9 times out of 10, it's less than 5? I'm thinking of a German project where they were going to have 50, and less than 5 of them were actually built in the end, because the rest of the money was just gone, disappeared into the ether.
Right. Konstantin Kisin was talking about this. He was on a panel, and they were saying, we need to get to zero, net zero, net zero. Konstantin Kisin said the percentage that Great Britain contributes to the issue is 2%. If we go to 0%, we are not in effect contributing anything positive, because other countries like China or Mexico or India or Brazil will just get into the space. And they will.
And the sad thing is, the bigger countries who contribute the most, I know what they're talking about, the net zero. Like you're talking about China, India, the United States. You're talking about the big industrial powerhouses.
Right. Mexico.
They're not good. They're not. But Mexico is not so much. I've heard Mexico be banded around in most South America. If you combine all the South American countries, it wouldn't come close to Canada and the United States when it comes to carbon emissions, which is, obviously because they're two very heavily industrialized countries. But at the end of the day, I understand the idea around net zero. We're never going to get there, by the way. That's never going to happen. Will we reduce it down over decades with more nuclear power plants and more greener technologies come online? Yes. But it's not going to happen overnight like what these people are talking about.
Right. And the green technologies that are not nuclear are still using tons of petroleum products. Tons.
Yes, but look, I have seen that argument before. To make any product, you need to use petroleum in some shape or form.
Facts.
Now, when it comes to making, say, solar panels, great idea on paper if you can get them working. They will eventually pay themselves back. But trying to get people to sign up to them is the issue. Or even wind technology. I know my aunt runs a farm and it's pretty much wind, solar. Well, I'm trying to think of the third one. But she's trying to reduce her carbon footprint down to zero. But she'll never get to zero, by the way. It'll always be between 5 and 10.
And Canada has a carbon tax on the individual as well, which is not great.
But I understand that we have to do something about the environment, but do it in a realistic, grown-up way. I understand we all have to talk about that elephant in the room sometime. But we don't have fusion technology. If we had fusion energy, that's decades away. But if we had that fusion technology, in theory, would produce 50, if not 100 times more power than nuclear, if we can get to that point.
Oh, that'd be great. But at this point, nuclear is the only green power that on paper economically is functional.
On paper, I always said you have to have a combination of all the green technologies at once. Don't go fully for wind or fully for solar or fully for nuclear, but a combination of all of the above. Not just at the state level, but also in the individual level. Get people to put up solar panels. I've seen abroad, because I was looking up doing tiny home one time, where you can put little wind turbines on the side of your houses.
Right,
and that produces
right, but
you
that's
know,
all
don't,
small. That's all the small
it's all
stuff.
small, but if every house did something small, that'd take a lot of a burden off the state.
Right, little turbines, little panels,
You know,
and
small
then
things. It don't have to be massive
oh, for sure,
fields of solar panels. It doesn't have to be massive fields of wind turbines.
which are
If every individual house did their small bit, it all adds up.
there you go. That'd be a community that would be working toward a net zero as best they can, understanding that we're going to have to use some petroleum, and there's going to be a lot of
Yes,
manufacturing to get us all the nice things that we have. We like air
yes.
conditioning. We like inside restrooms. We like hot
Mm.
showers. We like all these things, but that's going to
Yeah.
cause some of those things to happen.
But as I said, all this technology is as good as it is now. It's still years away from being fully there. Is the best word to describe it. It is
Absolutely.
getting there. There is investment going into green technology, and they are coming on leaps and bounds as time goes on.
Well, they need to get the technology to a little bit better place. All right, for Patrick
Yes.
McCallum, I am Alex Johansson. We're the A&P Gents. Like, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. We are out.